Hi, everybody. It's Jim. Great Books, Big Ideas. Welcome to the channel. Hope you become a subscriber if you're new to the channel. I was tagged by Kevin Towle Reads recently. Kevin posted a video on February 4th, 2025, called the Reading Ticks tag. And I thought this was a nice tag by him. He has a nice set of questions here. And I'll just take each of these in turn. And I want to extend a welcome to anybody watching the video to consider yourselves tagged. So if you have a YouTube channel and you want to respond to these prompts, I'll copy them in the show description, and I'll link back to Kevin's original video. So the Reading Ticks tag. Question number one, do you only read at a specific time of day? The answer to that would be no. There are times of day where I tend to read, and I don't read all day long. So mornings generally are really good reading times for me. I'm always up very early in the morning, sometimes at the 4 o'clock hour. Definitely by 5 o'clock I'm up. And that quiet time in the early morning is really good for reading. So after I meditate, I often turn to reading, or I'll listen to music, or I'll put some instrumental music on and I'll read. But that's a great time. That's definitely a specific time. Not every morning do I read, but I would say, like 80% of the mornings I read. There are usually times in the afternoon after I get a lot of my work done, where I have little pockets of time to read, and then definitely not at bedtime. I read every night in bed, so it's more than one specific time. Question number two, do you prefer to read in your work/everyday clothes, or are you partial to reading in PJs or comfy clothes? Well, it's sweats for me. I mean, I work from home now, so I basically can like wear my PJs or comfy clothes all day long if I want. So I definitely, even in my days when I was like commuting to work, I wouldn't read in my work clothes. It's always, almost always I'm going to read in my comfy clothes, which for me tends to be sweats. Yes, definitely comfy is a priority for me. Question number three, what is your favorite reading spot? Couch, chair, bed, outdoors, or somewhere else? I have more than one favorite reading spot. So let me just kind of do the inventory here. Usually in the mornings, I will read in our front living room on the sofa. I like to get horizontal, and I'll just read there. Or I'll be in the recliner that I'm sitting in now, which is in like our what we call the middle room, which is sort of like it's like a double living room in a sense, and that's a chair I read in a lot. I really like to have my feet up no matter where I'm at. So those are like first floor reading spots for me, and then on the second floor of our house, we have a room which used to be my daughter's bedroom, and now we've converted it into a little like it's kind of like a family room type thing. I mean, we have a sofa bed in there, so if we have guests, like they can stay. And then there's two good reading spots in that room, and this is the room that has the yellow walls. So if you've seen it in my videos, that's that upstairs room. There's the sofa bed. So sometimes I just stretch out on there and read. And then there's an IKEA armchair that I like and has an ottoman. I put my feet up and I like to read there. It's a good reading chair and it has nice light by the window. And then there's always the bed in the bedroom, and we have another small IKEA armchair in that room that I not that often, but occasionally will sit in that chair and read. So lots of favorite reading spots. Outdoors, well, when it's warm out and there aren't too many bugs yet, I do sometimes like to get set up on like a chaise lounge on the deck, or I'll sit on the front porch and do some reading. Question number 4, do you snack while reading, or is this a no-go? I tend not to snack as I think about it. I haven't ever really thought about that. I'm sure there have been occasions when I snack, but it's not like never do it, but I tend not to. I tend not to eat. I'm more likely to snack when I'm like browsing the internet, but not while reading. It's too messy for one thing. I don't want to smudge the pages. Question number 5, do you or have you ever peeked at the end of a book, or do you avoid spoilers at all costs? As a rule, I don't like to peek at the end of the book. That's not something I would tend to do. So I'm more on the end of the spectrum of avoid spoilers at all costs. I can't think of an instance when I jump to the end of the book. So yeah, that takes all the fun out of it, doesn't it? Question number 6, do you prefer first person or third person narrative, or do you care? I don't care. I really don't care. That is never a criteria for me to choose a book. Like, oh, this is written in first person, I'm going to go for that. Or it's written in third person, I'm going to go for that. Or I'm not going to go for it because it's written in one of those point of views. Doesn't matter to me at all. What matters is it an appropriate point of view choice for the story that's being told? That's the measure of it. So there's plenty of books where you're like, maybe I wish it wasn't told in first person or third person, if I really getting critical of it. But I don't think it really makes a difference. That being said, first person narratives tend to be a little more engaging, a little more easy to read. This is a very superficial comment, but like they draw you in a little bit more, and that's kind of nice. But it's never I don't want to disrespect third person narrative because it really doesn't matter to me. Number 7, do you read dedications, author notes, acknowledgements, or do you skip those? I read them. I like to read the front matter of books. I sometimes, if there's an introduction by the editor, I will. I sometimes will read the introduction, and sometimes I'll save that for after I finish the book. Most recent case would be. Do I have it here? I do. This book, Harriet Jacobs' Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl. I read the introduction to that because I wanted to get a little bit of background about Harriet Jacobs, and it was very informative. So that primed me to read the book. And then there was, a little thing by the original editor who assisted Harriet Jacobs with that. And saw it through to publication. Like I read all that, sure. So I tend to read those things, but not always. So if it's a really long introduction by the editor, I will sometimes save that. I can think of one recent case. This was many, many months ago, but like I reread the play Dr. Faustus by Christopher Marlowe in a Signet Classics edition, and I think, actually, okay, this brings up another point. A lot of those old Signet Classics mass market paperbacks, I really like them because they don't put an introduction in, or if they do put an introduction, they'll often also be they call it an afterword. I really like to read the afterwards because I'm not tempted to read that before I read the book. So I think in that case there was an afterword. I don't remember if there was an introduction, so maybe that's not the best example. But there's plenty of times where like the introduction is so long, And coming back to that spoilers question, um, I don't want the editor to give too much away. So I won't. I'll skip the introduction and come back to it after I finish the book. I do usually read that stuff, but it's usually after I'm done. Number 8. Do you have a favorite reading beverage? Oh yes, it's tea. Definitely got to be tea. Coffee. I I used to be an epic coffee drinker. Like, oh, in my younger days, my salad days, I would drink so much coffee, too much. I would have, like 12 cups a day. I could get through a whole pot of coffee, and and then I had insomnia. I wonder why. So I rectified my ways with coffee, and it's kind of like a little harsh on my system too. So I basically only drink coffee like usually one big mug like this. This is actually coffee in the morning, and maybe like a half cup if my wife gets up and she makes like the good coffee. Um, I'll have a little bit of that, but it's always the morning, and then I'm done with coffee. But I start with tea. So tea, when I have in my morning reading routine, I will have a cup of tea, and I'm drinking tea all throughout the day, caffeinated, uncaffeinated, and that's like my go-to beverage for reading. Occasionally maybe water, but like no, it's usually tea. I like to have a cup of tea by my side. Number 9, how do you decide what to read next? Your TBR, your mood, your goals, or random choice? I would say it's a mixture of those. I try not to be too rigid with my TBR lists or goals, but I this year in particular, I do have um a few lists in mind. Like I'm doing that year one Great Books reading plan, so that's giving me a little bit of guidance. Like, okay, I'm going to do the next one on the list, but those tend to be like shorter readings, and I'm only and most of them are rereads. So I'm doing those to sort of produce videos out of them. But when I'm just reading for pleasure, I try to follow my nose. I just whatever I'm interested in at the moment, or I'll just something on the shelf catches my eye, or something that I finish with has sparked an interest in something that's loosely associated with what I just read. So I go on these little runs. Sometimes I'll read another book by the same author. Uh, one thing I often do is there's the constant battle to clear shelf space so I can bring in some more new books, or I'm just kind of curating the collection and like recycling things. So sometimes I'll pull a book off the shelf and read it because I know I'm going to give it away, I'll donate it, and I'm not, it's not going to be a keeper, but I'm curious enough about it to try it, so I'm going to like give it a shot. That's often a purpose I go for. Sometimes it is based on mood. Sometimes it's something I recently got and I want to give it a try. Sometimes it's a book I have been waiting to read for like many, 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 many years. Like recently, I read this volume of the poetry of Sir Philip Sidney. I mean, that book's been around, I think, since I was in college, and I never got around to reading it. I finally finished it. So yeah, it's definitely a mixture of things, but I don't like build a list at the beginning of the year and say I'm going to read all these books. It's much more like day to day, week to week, and that's just best for me. That's everyone has like different priorities and different aims and purposes. So do whatever fits you. All right, that was the last question. Question 10 or prompt 10 is tag some others. So what I'm going to do is tag Kevin so you can go back to his original video, because he tagged a lot of people that I would have tagged anyway. So they, I'm sure, have seen that they are tagged. And I will extend just a global welcome mat. I will roll out the red carpet, and you can join in on this tag if you want. It was a fun tag, Kevin. Thank you so much for mentioning me, and I hope people subscribe to Kevin. He's building up a really nice channel there. So anyway, that was the reading ticks tag. I hope you enjoyed it. Curious to hear what your comments are. If you don't want to make a video, just respond in the comments, and let's keep that conversation going. Thanks, folks. Bye bye.